You know, it almost has that same kind of Black Dog thing where it just moves over an eighth note, or so it feels like it does, just to give you that sense of asymmetry, a bit of irregularity. It's not just so square right on every single downbeat. Those tend to be the grooviest types of riffs. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lone University. The Evil Has Landed is from Queens of the Stone Age's 7th studio album, Villains, released in 2017. So I was at the NAMM show earlier this year, back in January, and I ended up in the PV booth marveling at that new reissue of Josh Homme's amp, that really tiny classic PV combo amp. It's such a nostalgic-looking amp. I grew up with a lot of PV stuff around the house, that little blue knob, something about it, and I just learned when I was there that amp was responsible for tons of his iconic guitar sounds, songs like No One Knows and such, which is actually one of the only songs I know from this band. And I was going to say, this is another band where I know one or two hits. I don't get a lot of requests for this band on the channel, but looking at the comments, I saw some that had a really well-written suggestion saying that this song has some pretty lead-esque bass playing from bassist Michael Shuman. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Here is The Evil Has Landed from Queens of the Stone Age.
Come close.
A. Wow. This is giving me strong Zeppelin vibes. And again, I could probably name you about 2 or 3 songs from this band. I've always known they leaned more into that, I don't want to say vintage rock, but just real raw, authentic tones, production. It just always had that very lively feel. But this sounds like right off of an older Zeppelin album, which I need to come back to them on the channel soon as well, because Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, I'm probably the least familiar with. I kind of started with that band on 3, 4, and beyond. So anyway, I think what reminded me most of Zeppelin 2 is this unison riff. Very bluesy. We're here in A minor, kind of A blues. And what an interesting way to start the song. It had this sort of warbly tape, almost Beatles-esque, trippy vocal production around it to set the song up, throw in some suspense with those long pauses, and then just cut right into that Zeppelin-y kind of riff. Let me go back to right when they kicked in there. Let's see, where was it? There we go. The chromatic thing. Okay, just sounds like a chromatic walk up to the 1. Something like that. Okay. Up to the flat 7, so I think they're outlining just that A minor 7 arpeggio. Something in there, kind of a tricky phrasing rhythmically, but groovy. I love the drum beat behind it. Just in the pocket. Very bottom thing, too. Cool. I'm hearing that little half step pivot there. F to F sharp. Na 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 na. And it basically is dancing between 2 different key signatures, I believe, here, because we're in the A minor. That's kind of how we started off the song. Then they went to the D major, the F sharp, which kind of puts it in A, Dorian, that raised 4. But then I hear the F natural in there, and they're kind of pivoting between that half-step movement. So it could be dancing around A minor or A Dorian. It's just that ambiguous, light, dark, neutral thing we always talk about. And when this happens in songs, this is a very common thing to happen. Dancing between the raised 4 and the normal 4. Nonetheless, let me go back to when the vocals kicked in. Okay, this is good. right here. If you go back about 20 seconds to when the bass part changes slightly, I like how the drums are almost the only thing holding it down. The bass, the guitar, and even the vocal rhythms are dancing around the downbeats. It's almost like they're playing a lot with the upbeats, the inner beats. So you have this really syncopated unison between vocals, guitar, bass, groovy, and just that don't, leaving a lot of space in the drum groove. Not a lot of, chopsy, gospely stuff or anything, a lot of subdivision, just real open groove, and it lets all that other stuff have its place to breathe. And it's almost just a cool contrast to me. Little hi-hat. But I just like how it's all in unison outside of the drums, almost. Very, very similar phrasings. Okay. Cool, back to this riff. It almost has that same kind of Black Dog thing where it just moves over an eighth note, or so it feels like it does, just to give you that sense of asymmetry, a bit of irregularity. It's not just so square right on every single downbeat. Those tend to be the grooviest types of riffs, and I don't think I'm going to ever get it right here on first listen unless I sit here and rewind a ton, but they're returning to it here, cementing back in that bluesy-ish keeping it really playful with the chromaticism. Okay. Love the bass tone too. Real warm and like a warm blanket. Yeah, I feel like the bass part is going as that F and F sharp change happens. So it's kind of like D minor at first, the bass goes down to the C, then back up to the D, but it's major the second time. So that's kind of what's going on underneath that change, which it just gets a little happier and brighter going to that D major. Right there. Love those too. I'm always talking about the whoa-ohs. Well, we got the doo-doos now. They sound just as good. Take the lyrics away. Just give the listener a melody. Another melodic figure to join in on this already pretty dense guitar and bass interplay. I'm not a huge fan of those types of tones normally. Just really kind of, I don't even know how I would describe them. Just thin, scratchy. It works, but when it's in context, it leaves a lot of room for that bass to cut through. So I'm not complaining, but it's very kind of lo-fi. And I typically find songs with the really hi-fi guitar tones, very full range. It's just like, where's the bass going to fit in? It rarely ever does. So I like that aspect of it. The sum of the parts type of thing is what really works here with that tone. And now we're on the doo-doos. So let's see what this brings in. Didn't even realize this was a 6-minute song. Very cool. different section here. Okay. Almost sounds like the bass is a touch fuzzier here too. I like that it's blending in more with the guitar tone. We have that sort of scratchy, lo-fi sound. Now the bass has some fuzz on it. You just get this smearing effect that's just so vintage and almost a bit retro sounding. But there's so much great ear candy here in the bass part. This video would be 2 hours to stop and identify every fill, but this is like an encyclopedia of groovy, swanky, swaggery, cool bass fills. Just... you know, just all over, just moving constantly. I just love the presence bassist Michael Shuman has here in the song. Again, the idea for this video came from a really well-written request I had on the YouTube channel from, I don't know how many months ago, but it was like, you got to check this out. Michael Shuman's just kind of John Paul Jonesing over everything. I see that. That's cool. One second. Let me go back here. It almost sounds like the bass is changing the root note here while the guitar parts stay the same above it, but they're changing in different ways. So if you listen to each part independently, they're not really together. It almost sounds like the root note was being established as A by the bass, down to C, but it sounds like the guitar part might have stayed more static there, which creates a whole different set of chords, inversions, you know, whatever. Cool. That phrasing of that fill. Just feels very like it's building. Bass is getting busier and busier and busier. Yeah, that one. Can't get it. I go back just a little bit. I really like the way it got back into this riff with more layers happening than I think previously. Coming out of this. Yeah, the vocal harmonies bringing it back in. So it's got this sort of alternating phrasing. I love the irregularity of that pattern. Really groovy. This is a classic case of making your bass notes as elongated as the drum part under it. I think one of the most obvious players in rock who does this is Flea. Hi-hat's choked up, bass notes are tight and punching staccato. On the ride cymbal, more open, washy hi-hat, bass notes blossom a bit more. And that's a great principle as a bassist to learn from a dynamics perspective. Match the timbre. Not literally the timbre of the drums, but maybe the note lengths. I love how the bass player is intuitively doing that here. Right when we go back into this tighter pocket groove, you hear those bass notes get really short. Just really stopping it with the left hand, lifting up on the fret, choking them off, and just really making your bass part like a drum part. Such an important thing. This song is kind of a masterclass on that. It's so groovy, it's so in tight with the drums. Leaving a lot of that space. cool. New riff. So lyrical. Jumping up to that major 7. This bass part has been lyrical the entire time. It's really never played a whole note. I love the bounciness of it. Very interesting. This has actually been the most repetitive part of the song I can actually kind of join in. It's been tough. That's the hallmark of a cool bass part. Ooh. Man, what a cool dynamics thing there. This is a kind of a callback to what happened in the intro. Those slightly long, uncomfortable pauses. Because there's been so much happening. So much density. So many independent lines and parts and riffs happening. So it's like the oxygen just gets sucked out of the room when they leave these little pauses in there like that. That's powerful. It's the contrast. Dynamics are so important. Because they've built you up almost for the last 3 minutes in this total Zeppelin-y, all over the place jam. And it comes out into these snare unisons, boom, and the oxygen sucked out of the room. I love that. What was that? Right here. You hear the little bass slide back there? Wow, really good. Whole different thing here. Cool convergence of just every ingredient they've given you. And, you know, I've been reviewing a lot of punk rock on the channel, and a lot of those bands have the same tendency because their bass is so upfront, maybe so high up at the beginning. A lot of bass intros, a lot of bass melodies. And it's often a little ways into the song where the bass settles back down into its normal bass register. Down here, you know, and that is its own impact. If your entire bass line in your song is for like 3 minutes, and all of a sudden on the very, very last chorus out, you're down here going, you haven't been in that range yet. So to the listener, it's this huge, impactful moment. They've kept you out of that low range, kept your ear kind of in the mid-range where the bass has been the whole song, speaking hypothetically here. So that reminds me of this section here where the bass is finally going down low and playing unison down in these notes here. Michael Shuman's been up here the whole time. So all of a sudden down here, it's just a different kind of energy, different kind of impact. So I talk about this a lot. The range you play something in on bass, whether you unison the guitar part or you stray away from it, they all have different impacts. Be strategic about how they're placed throughout the song. That's the lesson I get learning from these musicians and these bass players. They all have such a different way of doing that. Big fan of this one. Really interesting composition. Kind of all smeary and jammy, then this big kind of punk rock thing at the end. You hear the guitar and they're going, kind of clashing with it. It's a little callback to the original riff.
There we go. There we go. Get out of the way.
Cool. some little bass fill in there. Honestly, I didn't intend to run with that Led Zeppelin comparison so much, but I think just reading that this album was from 2017, pretty recent, I was expecting maybe a more polished, modern, hi-fi kind of thing, but instead we got the opposite. This lively, retro, vintage, warm production, which must be a hallmark of their sound, I'm assuming. Again, I know nothing about this band, virtually nothing. In fact, I just learned, I didn't mention this in the intro, but I just learned that Josh Homme was from Caius. I know Scott Reeder personally. Him and I got to know each other at the Warwick camps many, many years ago. I've not really listened to much of any of the Caius stuff. I know he was in the band in the 90s, but I had no idea that the Queens of the Stone Age, this is all part of me learning, catching up on these bands that I have missed, and I have so much more to get to. So if this performance by Michael Shuman is any indication of what other bass lines might be lurking in their catalog, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to come back to bands like this. They're always so fun. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. If you'd like to support this channel further, please come find us over on Patreon. That's the best way to support the channel. We do full album reviews every single month. I have bass lessons, music theory lessons, just tons of stuff over there. And if you're enjoying this video, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. I love you all, and we will see you in the next one.